Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle of the end zone. Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
How are we doing, everyone, and welcome back into the channel. Today I've got my weekly game picks episode for Week 6 NFL action. This is just a video I do for fun every week. I give you 5 of my favorite bets against the spread that I personally went ahead and done for myself this week. Now, obviously, I said this last week, but be smart with your betting decisions. I don't want to be responsible for you guys either making or losing money. I'm just here to share the personal stakes that I've made for myself. And then one more note, I've made this every week that I've created this episode, is that we did not start this until week 4. So the record you see up on the screen, 25 and 55 overall, that is not an accurate representation of my picks so far this year. My actual record through the 2 weeks we've been doing this is episode number 3, is 25 and 7. So we started out the year missing the 3 weeks of 16 games. So we started 0 and 48. And now it's the battle to get back on top and to have, hopefully, very quickly here, we'll get over 500 by maybe even the middle of the year. We'll see how accurate we can be this week. But we're going to be slowing down just a little bit because we've got less games to choose from as we're starting bye weeks here now in Week 6. So we're without a handful of teams, missing some action here, but it should still be an awesome week of NFL football. We'll be going through every game. I'll be breaking it down, giving you all my picks for this week's contest. But first, I'll talk about my picks against the spread that, again, I have made for myself here in Week 6. I like the Chargers +3 this week at the Baltimore Ravens. Even though LA's on the road, Justin Herbert has been very, very impressive lately. And although Lamar Jackson has also expanded his playmaking ability, and a lot of us were quick to say that Lamar, and I think this is almost speaking to the evolution of Lamar Jackson, he once upon a time struggled to close football games late or to come back and make a win after trailing late in the fourth quarter. He has shut up the NFL community very quickly by coming back twice this season already and making those big-time plays through the air and with his arm that he hasn't been able to make in the past. But I get 3 points here for a hot Chargers team. A lot of dynamic ability offensively. I think their defense is very solid, although they did get absolutely smoked by the Browns' rushing attack last week. The Ravens just don't have the firepower that Cleveland has outside of Lamar Jackson doing it himself, obviously. They don't have a Nick Chubb. They don't have a Kareem Hunt in the backfield. So I'll take the points here. I think that even if the Chargers lose this one, they can lose a very, very close game. I'll take LA +3. I also like Arizona at Cleveland +3. I think that although there is evident flaws with both the Browns and the Cardinals teams, I like the dogs here getting the points on the road. Kyler Murray has that it factor, that wow playmaking ability that he can just go out here and make something out of nothing. And that's why I'm taking them here. They've also got a slew of offensive weapons from D-Hop to Rondale Moore, A.J. Green, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, and Christian Kirk. I left out of the mix there. So you've got yourself all those weapons. Again, it is a road game. You're going to play in Cleveland. It's starting to get a little bit colder now as we get into fall, but it shouldn't be sloppy field conditions just yet to this point in the year. I trust, again, one of the top MVP candidates right now in the league in Kyler Murray. I think that they can keep that hot streak going here and at least, again, cover those points at Cleveland. I'll take the favored Broncos -3.5 against the Vegas Raiders this week. Changing from a full-time head coach to an interim coach who's being promoted from an assistant position, that's a big deal. That's not an easy task to overcome on a week's notice. So you're probably going to be running the same playbook, running the same system offensively and defensively, but mentally there's an adjustment that needs to be made here. The Broncos have lost 2 relatively embarrassing performances here as of late. I think they bounce back finally, get back on track. You know, the Raiders, I think, were a bit fraudulent to begin with this season. I didn't really buy into their quick undefeated start and demise, where they have obviously lost the last 2 games here. And it was not a good showing last week at Chicago. I think part of that was that the team and the roster had kind of bought out of John Gruden's approach to the game, and they obviously had some lost respect there. But I like the favorite Broncos at at Las Vegas here. Or actually, I think the Broncos are at home this week. Dallas -3.5 at New England is another one I'll take. I think that Bill Belichick is just outmanned in this matchup. You get a one-dimensional quarterback in Mac Jones. And actually here, I want to check that Broncos game. I can see on screen if they are so it is at Denver. It's a home game for the Broncos. That is important. And obviously it leads partially to why they are the favorites in that matchup. Back to the Patriots and the Cowboys, though. Mac Jones is just not dynamic enough on his own to be a playmaker. His ceiling is incredibly low at this point because he doesn't have elite weapons to pass the football to. In Dallas, for how hot they're playing right now, 4-1 Cowboys, they've got playmakers all over the defensive side of the ball and speed, which is something the Patriots lack offensively. They're also banged up on the offensive line, and the defensive line of the Cowboys has been something that's been to behold so far this season with the depth they've had at the rotation positions. Even if Bill takes away, say, the run game, for instance, that's his favorite thing to do, take one factor out of a game and make a team beat you in a way that they don't want to. You take away the run game from Dallas, and you still got Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb who can fry you over the top and make big plays out of nothing. Now, maybe I'll back off of this take a little bit if in the pregame weather report we hear that's going to be a downpour monsoon and that the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to be able to pass the football, because then obviously if Bill takes away the run game, you're looking at tough sledding. But with a clear, sunny forecast, even partly cloudy, whatever, dry conditions, I'll take me some Dallas Cowboys at Gillette Stadium this week. And then finally on Sunday Night Football, I'll take the favored Pittsburgh Steelers -5. So you're giving the Hawks a lot of points here. Big Ben and this team got a big win last week. This one comes down to Geno Smith. I don't think that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to keep it with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Now, despite the fact that they are inefficient in their own right, besides the fact that they have been underwhelming to a point this season and are trying to battle back from a rough start here, when you lose Russell Wilson, and arguably some of the talk around that Seahawks team has been that's the only position of strength that they've really had, the only thing they're clinging to for a winning record was Russell Wilson, and contingent upon his play, your football team just took a massive blow. You lost your best player. Losing the quarterback for any team is a huge deal. You get a pass rush from Pittsburgh that's probably going to disrupt Geno Smith, and you already know going into this game that Pete Carroll's going to want to run the ball, so you take that away from him, make Geno Smith throw deep down the field. So I'll take Pittsburgh again. They're favored. They got to win this one by 5 points, but I think that's something that is relatively attainable. Not loving my picks as much as I did last week. I thought there were some really juicy opportunities there, but now here we are into the straight game picks. I'll take Tampa on Thursday night. This one seems very easy to me. Even with the Eagles having some element of trap team potential, I just think Jalen Hurts isn't going to be able to throw the football downfield enough or stay mistake-free enough to win this game. Tom Brady is not going to turn the football over more than one time tops in this game. He might not turn it over at all. So you're asking Jalen Hurts, who is not a pure passer, to play nearly flawless football against a hellacious pass rush and run stop. Now, Philadelphia, if you've heard a lot of my fantasy content and me rant about Miles Sanders, you know they don't give the running backs enough touches, or at least in my opinion, that's not something you got to worry about here. Tampa Bay is going to have to do what they can to stop Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert's on the COVID reserve right now, but they're going to have to stop the playmakers of the Eagles from beating them deep and from moving the football on them. Nonetheless, though, Tampa Bay is clearly the better team here for me. Miami at Jacksonville. Now, this one's interesting. It's a tough choice for me with a little bit of questionability surrounding who is going to be the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins this week. Technically, the injured reserve eligibility for Tua to return is there, and he could be the starter, but we're still kind of waiting to see official news here. I'll still take the Dolphins on the road. Quarterback pending. Now, I might change this prior to kickoff, depending on who we actually find out to be the official game time starter. But if it's Tua, this team's been embarrassed. They have not been playing good football. 1-4 is a disappointment for a Brian Flores-led team at this point in that rebuild. You supposedly got your quarterback. You've got him the playmaking weapons. You've got the defense, the playmakers, the ball hawks on the back end. The 0-5 Jags should not be able to knock you off even at home. That football team, I have to believe internally, is worse than what the Dolphins are at right now. Now, if Miami comes out here and you've got no Tua, we'll see about Jacoby Brissett. If you're down to like your third stringer, maybe we're talking a different situation here. But I will take Miami for now, but I am going to be checking in frequently on the quarterback health and situation for that game. Cincinnati at Detroit. I will take the Bengals here. Detroit's been losing close. This is another pick I could be wrong about. Detroit's been playing competitive football and losing late in games. That's something that shows growth. Dan Campbell, we saw, was tearing up after the game. I mean, that one for any football fan is just kind of like a knock in the chest because you just feel for the guy. He's pouring his heart and soul into that team. They're just not quite talented enough to pull out those victories late in games. They're giving it all they have. He demands maximum effort. He gets down on a week-to-week basis. I think those players like Campbell and what he brings to the table. But I think Cincinnati's just got a talent mismatch here. For such a beat-up and banged-up secondary in Detroit, you've got a healthy T. Higgins now. Jamar Chase has been going buck wild for the last month and month and a week of the season. And Tyler Boyd is no joke either as their number 3 option right now. Joe Mixon's getting healthier by the day. I think this offense is just too much for the Lions defense to bear. Now, again, Detroit has been playing tough football, but I think I'll take Cincinnati in this one. I think that despite the fact that Detroit can walk out there and play some gutsy defense, I don't think that the Lions have the offensive firepower to keep up with what Cincinnati could potentially provide late in a game. Green Bay at Chicago, I'll take my Packers here on the road. They're just a better football team right now, playing a young quarterback. Almost got upset last week. It was an ugly day for Mason Crosby. Nearly blew that game for them time and time again. But Justin Fields is still trying to find himself. This offense is still trying to get the wheels on the wagon here. You got to figure out how to develop a downfield passing game a little bit more. Get Darnell Mooney involved. Allen Robinson's one of your best offensive players. You got to get him touches. Get that run game going. I just think there's too much to ask in 1 week of the Bears. Maybe the next game will be at Lambeau, but maybe come back later in the season, see how the progression has been for Chicago. But this week, I'll take Green Bay. Houston at Indianapolis, I'll take the home team, the Colts. This is another one that's kind of a swing game. Houston's been somewhat of a trap team so far this year. Bill Belichick almost got embarrassed by them last week. They almost lost, 25-22. Patriots eke that one out as Mac Jones has a come-from-behind win. The Colts also blew a lead last week. So you've got 2 1-4 teams here. I think the Colts, though, are still in the mix for this division because of how poor the teams are in it. They're embarrassed. I think they'll come back. They're coached by a true professional in Frank Reich. I think that they'll get themselves under control here. If you limit your turnovers with Wentz, you've got a chance in almost every game because you've got a dang good roster. Get that run game going with Jonathan Taylor. Keep the ball on the ground. Be conservative. Houston can't beat you in a lot of ways. So as long as you limit your personal mistakes and maximize your efficiency, this is a game that the Colts have every opportunity to win. Kansas City at Washington, I'll take the Chiefs to get back to 500. I've been picking against Kansas City, and it's been working out for me in the picks. This week, it's time to go back the other direction, though. I got a really, really nice, I got the points with Buffalo last week in betting the spread. That was one of my best bets of the week. And I put the most on that game because I felt very strongly about the Bills in that matchup. That was a good cash out. That was a good opportunity to have a little bit of profit in the sports picking world here. But Washington, I don't know if I can trust enough in Taylor Heineke to outduel Patrick Mahomes. If this was your Washington football team defense of 2020, I might be thinking a little bit harder about this pick, but they've been getting thrown all over this year. The pass rush will disappear and be a ghost at times, non-existent. The Chiefs have got to get something together. They're too talented offensively. They're too well coached by Andy Reid to be overly complacent and just keep letting these losses rack up. The defense is a huge liability. It's a huge issue, but if Andy sits Patrick Mahomes down and says, your interceptions are up a little bit this year, it's not like you. It's not the normal tendency. You're too talented to continue doing this. Now, he's not throwing an unworldly amount of picks by any means. But if he just says, don't turn the football over this game, take the check down, play a little bit smarter, you're going to win this game. Taylor Heineke's going to turn it over, whether he gets strip sacked, throws a pick. He'll make the critical mistake. If you just prevent yourself from doing that, Kansas City has every opportunity to win this matchup. Los Angeles at New York, not spending a ton of time on this one. It sounds like we might get Danny Dimes back from concussion protocol, but man, they are ever depleted at the skilled positions. You're down Saquon, you're down a handful of starting receivers. Maybe some of those guys battling hamstring injuries can push through it and get into the game, but not something I like too much. We talked about the Ravens and the Chargers. I'll take the Chargers to win this game straight up just because I'm going to stick with my bet at Chargers +3. Now, I think there's a chance that this game comes down to a 27-26 game or maybe a 31-30. These offenses are very high-powered, and Baltimore being the home team is obviously somewhat of an advantage and gives you a little bit of an edge here. But I'll take Herbert. I think that it's so evenly matched. I'm just going to go with my gut feeling on this one. I'll take the Chargers. Very, very potential or very possible that I'm wrong about that pick there. Minnesota at Carolina. This is one I went back and forth with. But right now, I think I got to go with the Vikings. I think this might be an ugly football game. I'm a Packer fan, so I don't like rooting for teams in the NFC North. I don't like giving them credit, obviously. But the Vikings have the adult in the room at the quarterback position. Sam Darnold's still a kid. He's still a bit reckless. This Vikings defense is not up to caliber of some of Mike Zimmer's past defensive units, but they are well coached. They know how to create opportunistic turnovers. The defensive line and pass rush has been very impressive at this point in the season as well. I think Sam Darnold's going to be running around. His offensive line is by far the weakness of this team. If you get him under pressure, you can get a couple reckless throws picked off. You're looking like you're in a good spot, so I think that's a very winnable matchup for Minnesota here, even on the road. Again, going back to this one, I'll take the points and Arizona. I think they win this game straight up. I think that we're really starting to see the limitations of Baker Mayfield. I'm not too much of a Baker hater, but he's not my favorite quarterback. I don't think that if I've got the ball left with even 2 minutes in the game, Baker's one of the last quarterbacks I want. You know, he's not a guy who pushes the ball downfield at great efficiency or great success rates. And I think that the undefeated Cardinals, while I do think that they aren't quite up to the caliber of being a 5-0 team, and what I mean by that is I think that there are teams better than them who have losses on their records. Even though they stomped the Rams, I still think top to bottom on their best day, LA is better. Tampa Bay, I would take over the Cardinals any day of the week. The Chargers, besides the point, they're playing the Browns this week. But I think they're less limited offensively, and when their quarterback is playing at an MVP level and has the weapons he has, it's tough sledding to ask them to slow him down or even stop him. So I'll take AZ here. Dallas at New England, obviously I took the favorite Cowboys on the road, so I gave New England the points, and I'm still picking Dallas. I think they're the straight-up winners. I think they can win this by 7 or 10 points. Vegas at Denver, we talked about this one briefly as well. I'll take the Raiders here I'll take the Broncos to hold firm at home. John Gruden, we talked about that situation. That's a tough transition for any team. I think it's going to be a sloppy football game for the Raiders in a big transition period. So I like Denver's defense at home here. I like the efficiency and dependability of Teddy Bridgewater. And this Raiders defense, I don't think is anything to be too terribly afraid of. They've got a decent pass rush rotation going on, but it's nothing that can't be overcome by a strong run game and Teddy Bridgewater making smart passes. Seattle at Pittsburgh. Again, we're taking the Steelers. We talked about this one a little bit as well. Geno Smith, I don't think can keep this in terms of being a 5-point game. Pittsburgh did show signs of improvement. I still got doubts about Big Ben Roethlisberger. He can do a lot to continue to sway me in the right direction with a strong performance and win here in Week 6 against the Seahawks, at home especially, so you really should step up to expectations and deliver, but I'll take Pitt here. And then Buffalo at Tennessee. I need some water. Buffalo, I'll take them to blow the brakes off the Titans. This has blowout potential written all over it. Here's why. There are very obvious deficiencies with this Titans football team. They are 3-2, leading the AFC South right now. But Buffalo's defense has been one of the best in the league this year. If Sean McDermott can find a way to contain Derrick Henry for 4 quarters. Now, contain is a very strong word because contain for Derrick Henry means keep him to like 80 to 100 rushing yards and under 3 touchdowns. But if they can keep him in check and force Tannehill to try and pass the ball, your number one option in A.J. Brown is probably going to be blanketed by Tre'Davious White. It sounds like you might be getting Julio Jones back this week. He did return to practice on Wednesday. Encouraging news. But I still think, as bad as this Titans defense is, Josh Allen's going to have a field day. And unless Tennessee can answer with 7 points every time and go punch for 4 quarters with Josh Allen and all the offensive pieces he has, there's no way that they can stick this one out. So I'm taking Buffalo here. Again, if this turns into a situation where Derrick Henry gets taken out of this game early, say Buffalo goes up 14, 17 points early, Tennessee struggles to get on the board quickly, and they fall behind, get into must-pass situations, game over. Buffalo's running away and going wild with this thing. All right, those are my Week 6 game picks here for Week 6 action of 2021 football. Let me know in the comment section below what picks you would have went differently with, what you disagreed with, what points and takes that I had that you would have approached from a different angle, and what teams you are rooting for here. Maybe you see your team as the underdog this week, but you can still cheer for them, and we'll support you with your fandom and obviously your support of your NFL team. So thank you all so much for supporting me and checking out today's video. If you're still watching at this point, you're awesome. You are a true supporter of the SFS channel here, and we greatly appreciate all the time that you spend tuning into our videos. So thank you all so much for all you do for the channel, you guys. We love you. You're the best. See you guys next time. Peace out.